Hello everyone. This is the 8th part of the story, Blade God of Blood, Chapter 15, Ant-Man. The nights in the cities are always not so quiet and peaceful, because there are always people who want to do something. In the basement of a church in Queens, a group of vampires are roaring at a certain false god. Burt Wong is just a goddamn half-blood. Why should he be a blood god? Only noble pure blood is qualified to be a blood god. Burt Wong doesn't allow the vampires to suck the blood of living people. It's ridiculous. We, vampires, are at the top of the food chain, and humans are just our food. Burt Wong has become a dog of S.H.I.E.L.D. He said that Deacon Frost is an undercover agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he is the agent. The vampires cursed loudly. Some of them were pure blood, but more of them were mixed blood. They wanted to suck the blood of living people and thought they were mixed blood that was higher than humans. We must get rid of Burt Wong. Suck every drop of blood from him. A pure blood vampire shouted, and the other vampires echoed loudly. At this moment, the door was suddenly slammed open. Then, 2 rows of fully armed and goggle-wearing policemen filed in, with anesthetizing guns in their hands. Blade, wearing sunglasses, walked in with a grim face and shouted, "VPD, Vampire American Police Department, you are suspected of treason and sucking the blood of living people, and now you will be arrested immediately, otherwise you will be killed according to the order of the Blood God." "It's Blade! It's the Vampire Clan Police Station!" The vampires panicked, and the pure blood who were shouting before shouted, "Don't be afraid of these Burt slaves, kill them! Go!" Before the vampire could say anything, Blade gave an order. He was doing this for a long time. It was just a routine thing before. After all, he is a person who has a job now, so he must pay attention to the procedures. As soon as Blade called to do it, the 2 policemen in the front turned on the ultraviolet lights in their hands. The vampires screamed in agony and ran back frantically to avoid them. However, no vampires died because this was a weakened version. Immediately afterward, the police pulled the trigger and shot bullets from the anesthesia gun toward the vampires. As soon as the vampires were shot, they immediately fell unconscious on the spot. A little garlic essence was added to the anesthesia gun, which was very effective for vampires. Under the radiation of ultraviolet rays, only pure-blood vampires can resist. Pure-blood vampires roared and rushed to kill Blade. Blade grinned grimly, raised his hand and grabbed Pureblood's arm, and smashed it hard. With a slamming sound, Pureblood screamed, and even the sword fell to the ground weakly. Blade grabbed the Pureblood by his neck, squeezed tightly, and the Pureblood fell softly. He wasn't dead, just in a coma. "Blade! Vampire Hunter Blade!" The remaining 2 purebloods finally remembered the illustrious name of Blade. They were afraid and wanted to escape from the passage at the back. Blade immediately caught up and entangled one. As for the other, it was blocked by the ambush led by Melinda May. "Shoot!" Melinda was not polite and ordered the police to shoot on the spot, and a large number of silver bullets roared out. Although the pure blood is fast, the passage is too narrow, they can't dodge at all, and soon falls with bullet holes all over their body. The pure bloods were all gone, let alone the mixed blood. After a while, the battle was over, and the police threw the unconscious vampires into the police car one by one. Melinda came over and asked Blade in confusion, "I don't understand, why use a sedative gun?" Blade replied coldly, "These vampires are going to return to the arms of the Blood God." Melinda was full of question marks. "Huh!" Blade said, a popular version. "The Blood God will swallow their blood." "What?" Melinda was stunned for a moment. She frowned and asked, "Blade, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to subdue him when he becomes stronger?" Blade glanced at Melinda. He asked instead, "Why do you want to subdue him? What crime did he commit, or did he do something wrong to human beings?" Melinda said, "What if? There is a saying in the East that if you are not afraid of 10,000, you will be afraid of what will happen. As a police officer, look only at the present, and everything Burt is doing now is good for humanity." Blade said, The presumption of innocence is the principle we should use, Deputy Director Melinda. Melinda replied. S.H.I.E.L.D. uses the presumption of guilt, Chief Blade. Bert said that it is a severe time now, so all of them will be dealt with seriously. Only in this way can we quickly cut through the mess and establish a new order. Blade said. When the crackdown is over, the criminal vampires will be pulled into labor camps, and the wealth they create will be used to subsidize the law-abiding vampires. Strike hard, reform through labor? Melinda was stunned. Is this an Oriental word? Isn't Bert a second-generation Chinese born and raised? Blade said. Okay, don't waste time. We have to get rid of these rebels in the shortest time, and then start the next step, which is to register the vampire information and make tens of billions of subsidies. Melinda asked. Do you believe that Bert's plan can be achieved? Blade grinned, showing a mouth of white teeth. Of course, as long as you kill all those vampires who oppose it. When it comes to killing vampires, I am a professional. Melinda was stunned for a moment. Is Blade making a joke, or is he serious? Of course, Blade is telling the truth. His belief has never changed. Vampires who suck the blood of living people should be damned. In a large coast-side villa in Malibu, Obadiah Stane, shareholder and CEO of Stark Group, was dissatisfied and asked Pepper Potts, "What is Tony doing, making me attend the meeting with the military?" He didn't attend the meeting, and he didn't attend the Summit Awards. Pepper explained, "He's working on a new project. You know, when he starts working on it, he doesn't care about anything." The bald and bearded Obadiah frowned and asked, "What is he studying? Shouldn't he concentrate on preparing the Jericho missile during this time? He will go to the Middle East tomorrow to show the missile to the military. If something goes wrong, it will seriously affect the reputation of Stark Group. I'm not too sure, it seems to be anti-see-through or something." Little Pepper said, "Mr. Stane, please rest assured, Tony's products will never go wrong." Anti-perspective? Inexplicable. Obadiah glanced at the passage in the basement and wanted to go down and talk with Tony, but remembering the previous unpleasant experiences, he gave up the idea and got up and said, "Pepper, I'm going back. Tell Tony that I've been here. Also, be sure to get him on the plane on time tomorrow." "Yes, Mr. Stane." Little Pepper sent Obadiah away. Obadiah got in the car and looked back at the villa with cold eyes. Tony Stark is indeed a chicken that lays golden eggs, but he is becoming more and more disobedient now, always doing what he wants. More importantly, Tony doesn't respect me at all. He regards me as some sort of housekeeper. Obadiah has endured it for a long time. This time, he doesn't plan to endure it anymore. The Stark Group belongs to him, not the Stark family. Goodbye, Tony. The next day, Tony was ready to board the plane under the urging of Little Pepper. He held a box and explained, "This is what I promised to Burt Wong. You can send it. Remember, don't do it yourself." "Okay, that guy is an asshole." Little Pepper took the box and complained, "Is there anyone in this world who is more jerk than you? Boss." "Little Pepper, what you said is too much. I even gave you a birthday present before." "Yes, although I chose it myself, at least you paid the bill." Anyway, don't go by yourself." Tony explained it again and again. Like an old mother, Pepper felt extraordinarily funny. She had never seen such Tony like this. Who on earth is that Burt Wong who can make Tony become like this? Little Pepper was curious. But after thinking about it, she still asked others to send the box over, lest Tony Stark get angry at her when he found out. It's scary when little kids get angry. That's right, Tony Stark is a little kid in the eyes of Pepper. Early in the morning, in a mansion in Manhattan, a gray-haired old man glanced at the empty house, went to the bathroom alone to take care of personal hygiene, then made breakfast alone, and then ate breakfast miserably alone. It was unfortunate. The old man didn't know what to think. He sighed, and at this moment, a mocking voice suddenly came from behind him. "In a huge mansion, all alone, you and I are quite the same, Mr. Hank Pym. What do you think?" "Who?" Hank Pym was shocked and wanted to look back. The voice behind him sounded again. Don't look back. Don't touch any alarms and defenses, just sit there. As soon as the voice came out, Pym's neck froze immediately, and he couldn't look back. Not only that, but he couldn't touch the defense button placed under the table. He shouted in surprise. Who are you? What? My daughter will be back soon. Didn't your daughter betray you long ago? As far as I know, she kicked you out of Pym Technologies with your apprentice. The mysterious man, namely Wang Bert, smiled and said, Also, you can call me the Professor. Pym is the last generation of Ant-Man, with talents that are not inferior to the father of Iron Man. Unfortunately, he is irritable and withdrawn, so his friends have broke contact with him, and even his apprentices and daughters have betrayed him later. Become a loner. Hank Pym's face became more and more ugly. The other party knows about him so clearly. He asked, What do you want? I want Pym particles and Ant-Man's suit. Bert said that the reason why he came here is to take the Pym particles, which make things bigger and smaller with a click of a button. This thing is incredible, and it can be called a miracle in any world. Hank Pym was startled, he said. I don't know what Pym particles are, and I don't know what Ant-Man is. Bert smiled and said, Give me the formula of the Pym particle, give me the Ant-Man suit, and all the Pym particles you have now. Pym didn't want to give it, but his body uncontrollably took out the Ant-Man suit and Pym particle from the basement, and then told the other party the formula completely. Not a word was missed. How? Pym is desperate. He has kept the formula hidden for so many years, and even S.H.I.E.L.D. can't get it, and now he took the initiative to give it to a thief who calls himself the Professor? Very good. Bert put away the Ant-Man suit and the Pym particle in satisfaction, and then he said, Mr. Pym, I'm embarrassed to take your things for nothing. In return, I'll tell you something, Wasp. The woman is not dead, she is still in the quantum world. What? Hank Pym opened his eyes wide and shouted in disbelief. Wasp is the codename of Janet Van Dyne, his wife. To save the world, she had to use Pym particles to shrink to a molecular state and then disappear. Hank Pym always thought that she was dead, but now the thief tells him that she is in the quantum world. What I said is true, believe it or not, it's your choice. Bert said lightly. Okay, Mr. Pym, I'm leaving. After I leave, all the previous restrictions will be lifted. In addition, you should call your daughter, and when she returns, explain the details of the Wasp. Tell her. Poor old man. Who are you? Pym was stunned for a moment, and then asked aloud, but there was no response. After a minute or so, he found that he could turn back, and hurriedly turned around, but the room was empty. Pym wanted to check the surveillance, but involuntarily walked over to the phone, called his daughter Hope Pym, and asked her to come home. Although Hope betrayed Hank Pym, she still had her father in her heart. Hearing that her father's voice was not right, she agreed immediately. Hanging up the phone, Hank Pym immediately went to the surveillance camera, but saw nothing. The surveillance camera was destroyed by the thief. Fuck! Hank Pym cursed bitterly, just remembering what the thief said before, and his breathing couldn't help but quicken. If that's true, wouldn't he be able to see Janet again? It seems that I have to make it clear to Hope, whether it is to find the thief or go to the quantum world. I need Hope's help. In the Hell's Kitchen Cafe, Bert said to James with satisfaction, James, you've done a good job as the intelligence director. You found the person I was looking for so quickly. Hank Pym is a celebrity. His address is not difficult to find, and the black female Dr. Karen Jensen was also easy to find. James said, The only hard thing to find is that university professor. We only know what he looks like, not his name. The black female Dr. Karen Jensen is the heroine of Blade movie and a hematologist. Bert wants to find her to help study the artificial blood. The university professor is Dr. Samuel Stearns from The Incredible Hulk. Bert doesn't remember his name, but there is no doubt that he is also a genius. More importantly, he has a lot of Hulk's blood. Note: Dr. Samuel Stearns is a cellular biologist and Grayburn College professor who was finding a cure for Bruce Banner. Stearns managed to engineer a temporary antidote for Banner's condition but was also forced to repeat this process with Emil Blonsky, transforming him into the Abomination. Bert knew where the Hulk was now, but he didn't want to find him for the time being, so he'd do some experiments with his blood first. Let your subordinates look for it. There are not many Manhattan universities, so it's not difficult to find, Bert said. Go to Moscow to help me find 2 people. Looking for someone again? James is a little speechless. Is he the intelligence director or the director of finding someone? He asked. God of blood, who are you looking for? Anton Vanco, Ivan Vanco, these 2 are father and son. Anton Vanco should be dying now. Ivan Vanco has been in prison. Bert used blood to form the appearance of the 2 people. Ivan Vanco is relatively clear. Anton Vanco is very vague. After all, Ivan is the villain of Iron Man 2, and his face is clear in his memory. Find them as soon as possible. Don't be afraid to spend money. After finding them, tell Ivan that I can save his father. Bert continued. If they don't want to come, bring them over by force without hurting them. Of course, this is the last resort. Try your best. James said. Understood, Blood God, I'm going now. Bert nodded. Go, remember to keep it a secret. Don't worry, Blood God, no one can get any information from me. James left happily. When he saw his old boss, Mercury, he greeted her with a proud face. What about pure blood? Now he is the right-hand man of the Blood God. Chapter 16, Daredevil. Looking at James, who was leaving, Mercury couldn't help but scold. This guy didn't even have the qualifications to look up to her before, but now he is on an equal footing with her. Natasha watched all this coldly, the conflict between pure blood and mixed blood, but she knew very well that the reason why the Blood God Bert asked Peggy Carter to be the president was to suppress pure blood. Mercury glanced at Natasha, snorted, took the box and strode to Bert's table, and said, This is a box sent by Tony Stark, Blood God. How do you know Tony Stark? Had a bet with him at the casino, he lost and promised to make something for me. Bert took the box and opened it. There was a transparent mask as thin as a cicada's wings. This mask is larger than ordinary masks and can cover the neck and ears. In addition, the eyes, nose, mouth, and ears have no openings, all closed, and there is a switch similar to a controller at the edge. Bert picked up the mask and touched it. The texture was very similar to that of human skin. Then, he put down the mask and flipped through the instructions in the box. His eyes lit up. Bert said to Mercury, Mercury, this mask is designed based on your face shape. When you put it on and turn on the power, it will automatically fit your skin, making it impossible for people to see that you are wearing a mask. Can't see I'm wearing a mask? Mercury was a little surprised. She picked up the mask and put it on, then turned on the switch. The mask shrank for a while, and fit her face and neck completely. Mercury took out a mirror and looked at it. Except for the controller, there was really no mask. What's even more amazing is that although the mask is closed, her vision, breathing, and speech are completely unaffected. Mercury put down the mirror and asked inexplicably, It's an interesting mask, but Blood God, what use does it have? Bert said, Put on your UV protective hat and go out there to bask in the sun. Bathing in the sun? When Mercury thought of something, her eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly put on her hat, and then walked into the sun with a little excitement and a little trepidation. Nothing, the skin on Mercury's face, showed no signs of dissolving at all. The clothes on her were UV protected. Mercury asked excitedly, Blood God, can this mask block ultraviolet rays? Yes, as long as you cover the controller with your hair, no one can see you wearing a mask. Bert smiled and said, In this way, even if our blood clan does not completely cover ourselves, we can still move freely during the day. This is a good thing. Tony Stark is indeed a genius. He can invent such things. Mercury was very excited. With this mask, she could follow the Blood God at any time in the future, and she no longer had to worry about the sun. Natasha looked at the Mercury in the sunlight, and frowned secretly. This thing can greatly increase the strength of the Blood clan. Bert thought of something. He glanced at Natasha. This mask is a bit similar to Black Widow's disguise mask in Captain America 2. Is it the same technology? If this thing can be developed, maybe it can become a disguise mask. A genius is a genius. In just a few days, he can invent something that others can't invent in a lifetime. Bert sighed secretly. He picked up the power of attorney in the box and shouted to Natasha. Natalie, check the power of attorney. If there is no problem, we will find a way to mass produce it. Okay, Blood God. Natasha skillfully picked up the authorization letter and looked at it. After a while, she said, Blood God, something is wrong. Although we have a patent for this thing, if we want to produce this mask, we must use the exclusive Stark group. Some new silicones and tiny batteries. Tony Stark is such a shrewd guy. Bert couldn't help but laugh. This is obviously because Tony is not convinced, and he specially created an obstacle for him. He said, Check this, a new type of silicone and micro batteries at Stark Group is up for sale. It is good. Natasha immediately used her laptop to inquire. After a while, she said, It is up for sale, but the price is very expensive. I calculated that one mask will cost about $80,000 worth of silicone and batteries. In that case, it will not be mass-produced for the time being. Bert shook his head and said, Place an order with Stark Group and buy more. In addition, Mercury, you can find someone to set up a factory with the design map and strive to produce as soon as possible. By the way, you should pay special attention to the chips. If others left any backdoor in the technology. Mercury came out of the sunlight, put the mask back into the box, and said, Got it, Blood God, I will complete the production of this mask as quickly as possible. Bert said, Well, after production, first popularize the product using the guards of security companies as a benefit, and then sell it for $200,000. It is only sold to registered vampires. Those who have not registered will not be allowed to buy. Yes, Blood God. Mercury nodded. Natasha couldn't help but glance at Bert. This guy is bad, and he made twice as much profit as he changed hands. The price is still too high. Find a way to get this silicone and battery technology. Bert touched his chin, thought of something, and asked Mercury, By the way, have you built a few offshore companies? Mercury said, It's done, Blood God. Are you planning to enter the stock market? Bert said, Well, let our financial companies start shorting the Stark Group. What, short the Stark Group? Mercury and Natasha were both stunned. Natasha reminded, Blood God, Stark Group's stock price has been rising because of the Jericho missile. We will lose a lot of money by shorting it at this time. Shorting, in simple terms, means that when the stock price rises, you lose money, and when the stock price falls, you make money. I saw Tony a few days ago and found that his eating was blackened, and there might be an upcoming disaster for him. Bert said lightly. Tony Stark is the core of the Stark Group. If he was in an accident, the Stark Group's stock will definitely dive. At that time, we can make a lot of money. Eating turned black. Upcoming disaster? The two women are confused. What does this mean? I don't understand. Please translate. Anyway, do as I say. Bert said. Mercury hesitated and said, Blood God, Stark Group is the most powerful military industry group in the world. We short them, and S.H.I.E.L.D. may have an opinion. What if they have an opinion? We don't break the law. Bert snorted coldly. No one can stop us if we don't break the law. Shorting the Stark Group is just the beginning of my big plan. You just do it. After a pause, Bert added, You don't have to care too much. I have a good relationship with Director Fury. Yes, Blood God, I will immediately instruct the financial company to do it. Mercury no longer objected after hearing the words and went to the next room to make a phone call. Big plan? Natasha's eyes flickered. She approached Bert, bent down, and asked, Blood God, what do you need me to do with your big plan? Bert's eyes looked down unceremoniously, but his tone was very strict. After a while, you will know. Then I'm waiting. Natasha straightened her waist and walked gracefully back to her seat. Without any information, she can't accuse Bert of anything. This matter must be reported to the director. Tony Stark is very important to the safety of the world. Bert probably got some news. At this time, the phone rang. Natasha picked up the phone to answer, and after a while, she said to Bert, "Blood God, Lawyer Michael Murdoch, Matt Murdoch, and Lawyer Foggy Nelson, who are in charge of the long-term rental apartment, want to see you. The timeline of this world is messed up. Daredevil made his debut so soon." Bert narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Please come in." Soon, two lawyers walked in accompanied by the lady at the front desk. To Natasha's surprise, Matt Murdoch was a blind man. Well, can a blind man be a lawyer? Bert squinted slightly. Matt is not an ordinary blind man. He is the superhero Daredevil who has recently become popular in Hell's Kitchen. Matt Murdoch, when he was a child, was blinded by chemical pollution, but he also gained a strong sense of hearing, smell, and touch. These powerful senses make Matt no different from a normal person, which is why he can become a lawyer. Later, Matt found out that studying law could not save Americans, so he worked as a lawyer during the day and dressed in red at night as Daredevil to fight crime. Seeing Daredevil, Bert couldn't help but think of Jessica Jones, who was also a street hero. This woman was too boring. After sobering up, she flew away from his castle without even saying thank you, breaking his window. Next time we meet, I'll be sure to ask her to pay for that. Bert got up and shook hands with the two. "Attorney Murdoch, Attorney Nelson, how are you?" "Hello, Mr. Wong." After some courtesies, Matt went straight to the point. "Mr. Wong, my clients agree with your conditions in principle, but I hope you can pay more compensation." "Lawyer Murdoch, can you find another owner as generous as me in America?" Bert said. "I specifically found an apartment building for them to move in." Matt said, "Mr. Wong, you are indeed very generous, but my clients are financially poor, and relocation will be very troublesome, so more compensation is needed." "That is to say, a big eater?" Bert laughed and said, "Well, if they can move out within 3 days, the compensation fee will be increased by 50%. If they move out within 7 days, the compensation fee will increase by 20%, and if you move out after 7 days, the compensation fee will not increase. How about that?" Matt was a little surprised. "Mr. Wong wants that building in such a hurry?" "I want to build my group headquarters there, the sooner the better." Bert smiled. Matt and Foggy discussed it and said, "Mr. Wong, I will tell my clients about your conditions. If there is no problem, we can officially sign the contract tomorrow." "Very good, trouble you. Natalie, help me deliver them." Bert got up and shook hands with the two of them again. Matt and the others were about to leave when Mercury walked out from the next room. Matt heard footsteps, his expression changed slightly, and he stared at Mercury, who came out in shock. "What's the matter? Why doesn't this woman have a heartbeat?" Matt was very puzzled. He could hear the heartbeat. He usually used this ability to determine who was around, but he never expected to meet someone who had no heartbeat but could move. Vampires don't have a heartbeat, but Bert does. Mercury naturally didn't know what Matt was thinking. She stood beside Bert and waited for the outsider to leave. Matt had returned to normal at this time and left with a guide stick accompanied by Natasha, but his ears were pricked. "Get up and eavesdrop on the conversation between Bert and Mercury." Mercury said, "Blood God, Mrs. Gao called me, she is coming to visit us." Bert asked, "When?" Mercury said, "It's now, she's almost here." "Mercury, take out your samurai sword, let's go to the underground martial arts field and wait for them." Bert sneered and said that the underground martial arts field was remodeled from the basement of the coffee shop. After he became a blood god, he did not stop practicing for actual combat. "This world is very dangerous," Mercury said excitedly. "Okay, just in time to meet those ninjas." "Mrs. Gao?" When Matt heard the name, he frowned secretly. Mrs. Gao is not a good stubble. She monopolized the illegal drug business in Hell's Kitchen and recruited many people to dispense drugs for her. She is not good. This blood god group doesn't seem to be easy. Matt thought to himself. When he came to the door, he happened to see a little old lady on crutches and an Asian in a suit getting out of the car. He was secretly shocked. Why did Mrs. Gao follow him? The Asian guy is the leader of the Yakuza, and Matt fought with him before. Matt didn't know that both Mrs. Gao and Nobu Yoshioka were part of the hand. Mrs. Gao was one of the 5 fingers of the hand, and Nobu Yoshioka was Murakami's confidant, the other finger of the hand. Natasha said to Matt, "Lawyer Murdoch, I will send you off, let's go." Matt came back to his senses and smiled. "Well, next time can we have some coffee together?" Natasha smiled and said, "Is this asking me out?" Matt was about to answer when he heard Yoshioka and the guard clashing, and the guard said firmly, "You must be searched to make sure you are not carrying dangerous weapons." What else Yoshioka would say? Mrs. Gao waved her hand, and when everyone thought she was going to compromise, she pushed the guard in the air. The guard seemed to be hit by a hammer, and involuntarily flew out and hit the wall up and down. "Let's go!" Mrs. Gao leaned on a cane and walked in tremblingly. If one hadn't seen the scene with their own eyes, no one would have thought that such an old lady who would fall to the ground when the wind blew was a master. "There is trouble coming to the door." Natasha ignored Matt and hurried inside. Matt shoved the briefcase to Foggy, who wanted to say something, and said, "Foggy, you go back first, I'll go shopping nearby." "Matt, you didn't see it just now, that old lady." Foggy wanted to say something, but found that Matt had already run towards the back alley, and could only return alone in depression. Not only Foggy and Matt saw the scene just now, but also 2 women, that is, Trish Walker and Jessica Jones, who were out. They are a pair of unrelated sisters. This marks the end of Part 8 of the story, Blade God of Blood. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.